Thanks a lot for joining us. Let's get started, with a brief intro about yourself and what you're up to these days.
Sure. Uh, Nikhil Goel. I spent the last 5.5 years at Uber, the majority of which I had the pleasure of helping lead the Uber Elevate team, a team I co-founded with our former chief product officer, Jeff Holden, and a gentleman named Mark Moore, who joined us after 32 years at NASA. So we built the team to over 100 with the goal of really advancing urban air mobility. Had the honor of working with OEMs all over the world, governments, cities, states, regulators, architects, real estate professionals. It was just a lot of fun and really gave us the opportunity to work with some world-class companies. So did that for the last 5.5 years. I now advise a number of companies across the transportation and aviation sectors, and really enjoy getting to work with innovators in the space.
How did your childhood influence what you're doing now? Were you always interested in aviation, or is it something that you picked up along the way?
Yeah, listen, my childhood was very influential to me choosing a career in math and science, particularly aviation. A lot of people actually know the town I grew up in, Huntsville, Alabama, is Rocket City. And that's because it's got one of the largest NASA centers in the country, NASA Marshall Space Flight Center. And just about everybody in town either works for NASA, they work for the Department of Defense, or they work for one of the contractors that support either of these institutions. So, as you can imagine, I grew up with rockets and spaceships, and I was programming by the age of 7, and really was lucky to have teachers and role models, including my father, who I was able to look to for inspiration on what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so very, very naturally, my first job was at NASA. I then got to work for a DoD contractor, and those experiences were formative and allowed me to really see all of the innovation that was and wasn't happening within some of the largest kind of space institution or aviation institutions we have in the country. And so as I got to Uber, one of the things that Travis and Jeff Holden challenged us to think about was, what does the future of transportation and travel look like? And that's where I was really able to tap into some of those aviation routes and say, well, why don't people fly across cities? Why is aviation not a daily form of transportation? And so it really allowed the team and myself to ask that question, and spend a lot of time with companies I admired since I was a child, like Boeing, like NASA, etc.
So before Uber, you actually spent some time at YouTube and Microsoft as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so look, I was lucky to spend a little bit of time at Microsoft. Worked on the Xbox team and then worked on the Microsoft Office team, both as a product manager. I then spent a little bit of time at YouTube, working on some of the creation tools that we had to support creators on the platform, and spent a couple of years at McKinsey. At McKinsey, I spent most of my time on the transportation and media industries. And then that's what helped bring me to Uber. I joined Uber in 2015. I started my time there working on the emerging markets team, focused on places like India and China and the Southeast Asia, where Uber was just starting up. Got to help lead the rider app redesign, and then helped start the Elevate team in about 2016.
So you left Uber recently, but you've been keeping quite busy with a lot of other projects. Can you tell us what you're working on these days?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of things going on. I'm spending a lot of time angel investing. I am advising two companies that are going through the SPAC process now. Archer is one of them. Archer is the company that I spend most of my time with, focused around urban air mobility. I'm an advisor to a company called Evolve, which is doing millimeter wave scanning for physical security across, large venues, airports, etc. I'm working with a few stealth companies in the aviation space that are doing things like cargo delivery and innovative technology around propulsion. And then I'm spending a lot of my time working on a new stealth company that I co-founded. And so a lot of different things going on.
The future of transportation is an area that's being a lot of people are experimenting on at the moment. And how do you see eVTOLs being able to solve the challenges faced by cities and unique places, geographical places like the Maldives? And how do you see like bringing people together and making people's lives better through this sort of approach?
Yeah, well, look, first let me say that there's going to be a lot of innovation in transportation over the next decade. eVTOL is only going to be a portion of it. What eVTOL mainly unlocks is it allows you to effectively circumvent the congestion on the ground, which, by the way, is growing by the day, right? Cities are getting increasingly larger, cities are getting increasingly more dense, and transportation solutions on the ground aren't keeping up. There's only limited space that we have for residential and commercial space. And if you think about buildings, we very, very quickly realized that we couldn't build everything on the ground. We had to go to the third dimension, like skyscrapers did decades ago. And we haven't really done the same with urban transportation. So I think that's the biggest thing that eVTOL unlocks. The other thing that it helps unlock is just electric aviation in general, where as batteries get better and better, we'll start with short flights on eVTOL, but increasingly be able to take increasingly longer flights, all electric. So as I think about places like the Maldives, which are inaccessible by easy car routes, like a lot of places, then I think about people really primarily getting in and out by plane. And I hope that some of those flights will be with electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. And I know some of those will be with longer range aircraft, but then there's so many solutions and companies working on really exciting technologies to make even those flights all electric.
And talking about the future, a lot of countries, the UN and they're all setting goals to go zero emission and cutting the emissions and going net zero. How do you see the transportation space, or especially the air travel space, which is usually what people point to the most? Like, oh, travel isn't good, it's bad for the environment and everything. How do you see the space transforming over the next 30 years?
Yeah, well, look, it's a big question, and I certainly can't speak to the entire space, but I do think that the largest innovation here is going to be the use of renewable energy to power aviation. Um, what what this movement has done with Elon Musk really pushing a lot of it, but then as you mentioned, the UN and other countries really following suit and saying, "Hey, we're going to be emissions free by 2030," or whatever target date has done, is it pushes a lot of the innovation and opportunity to renewable forms of energy, specifically batteries. And for the very, very first time, we're finally able to say, hey, we are going to be able to power human air travel by battery. And by the way, that battery power compounds year over year at about 8 to 10%. And so right now we're right at the precipice of being able to carry 2 to 4 people with batteries. If you fast forward that 8 to 10%, that means that power is going to double roughly every, I don't know, 8 to 9 years. And so if you think about what does that look like in 2030, well, what does that look like in 2040, then it's basically inevitable that all air travel will ultimately, come from renewable forms of energy. And that's really exciting for me.
When you talk about the future, you kind of have to talk about Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and SpaceX and a lot of these technologies pushing the airspace forward. And there's even talk about habitation on Mars. So, what do you think about all this?
Well, listen, I'm certainly no expert, but I think that some of the greatest minds of our generation, whether it's Elon Musk, whether it's Gwen Shotwell, whether it's Jeff Bezos, I think people have all aligned that space travel is essential to innovation and becoming a multiplanetary species, which I think I certainly find a lot of merit in the way that Elon speaks about the inevitability of us becoming a multiplanetary species. And in my mind, I see only upside there. So I'm super glad that people are pursuing these bets with a lot of human capital and a lot of talent.
Everything that you're doing is new, considered new, like changing industries. So there must be a lot of people who are skeptical about these things. And like, how do you deal with such pushback?
Yeah, look, I think that if people aren't skeptical about something that I'm working on the wrong thing. I rewind back to 2015 when we helped found the Elevate team. Most people in the world, most people within Uber itself, were kind of like, dude, what are you spending your time on? Why are you spending your time on this? And the way that I think about these sort of bets are, my best case looks like, 100, 1,000, a million X kind of return on my time, where something that started as a little inkling of an idea becomes massive. The best case for a naysayer is, getting to say I told you so. And so it's a very, very, very low downside, very, very high upside. And the way I think about it is, if I can take 100 of these bets in my life, then even if just a few of them pan out, the ones that don't really matter. And so I'd much rather take that approach as I think about things to work on than choosing things that are sure bets. And so far that approach has served me well. Maybe let's check back in 10 years, but frankly, I have a lot of fun getting to work on these big, bold bets.
So, taking into account all the projects that you've been involved with, what is a common factor that you find across all of these projects that kind of gets you going and gives you the driving force to see it through?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a good question. I think the driving force is, frankly, technologies that I find interesting and specifically see improving the lives of myself, my family, and my friends. Basically, everything I've worked on, even as I think about working on products like Xbox and YouTube, these were products that I spent a lot of my own time on and gave me a lot of pleasure in life and unlocked new friendships, unlocked new forms of entertainment for me. And so, as I fast forward to eVTOL, moving around town and getting to unlock opportunities through that movement is fundamentally what powers, I think, life for all of us, especially post COVID. And so that's one example of something that really gives me motivation around, what I choose to pursue.
We face a lot of different challenges when it comes to achieving the ambitious goals that we are setting. How do you see public private partnerships contributing to accelerating this transition?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that at Uber, I got to see a lot of innovation happening with private public partnerships like this. I spent a lot of time with countries like India and Japan, where it took the government and it took certain individuals within government and governmental institutions to say, "Hey, I'm going to go out and partner with public industry, with private industry, and partner together on innovation." And it's kind of the recognition that if you have a government that is deeply, deeply, deeply committed to innovative change, then industry will come, right? And if you look right here in America, you look at NASA saying, "Hey, look, well, instead of trying to compete with SpaceX, we are going to partner with SpaceX and do manned launches together." Um, that's where I think all of the goodness really happens. And with eVTOL, um, partnerships with cities was, existential for us. We can't just go into a city and start launching flying cars. You've got to partner very, very closely with the city. You've got to understand what the city needs. They've got decades of institutional knowledge here around how people within the city move, where are the pain points of the city, what are the concerns of the citizens. And so I think that private industry working together with public government is really where innovation's unlocked.
So, this concludes the session. But, Nikhil, thanks so much for joining us and telling us so much about your journey and also giving us a little glimpse into the future of air travel. It's been a real pleasure, and we'll talk to you soon.